Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm like yelling. Nobody can hear me, but
Yes,
I can't
we
hear
can hear
them.
you.
I can't hear them though. Can you hear them?
Not yet.
Okay, because I'm driving down from North because my daughter had a softball game.
Were they not? You're on mute. Did you hear me, Brian?
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear Rebecca.
Awesome. Okay. I should be there in like 10 minutes. I'm just driving down from North.
Okay.
Yeah. Review and submit. I figured it that forward to me, but not. Yes, 21. Yeah. 62, that's cheaper, that's. It all takes out a lot, right? And usually at the end of the day, end of school year. Yeah. That's the big, bro.
Let me know when you guys are ready to call the meeting to order.
Yeah. And given the course, that was.
I can't hear anybody in the room. I can only.
We haven't started the meeting yet, Rebecca,
Okay.
and we're muting because we normally mute before we start the meeting.
Okay, because I usually call the meeting to order, so I was going to call it to order. That's all. It's okay.
Okay.
When you say that, I'm not saying you're not.
I really, so you've made a few comments that Wayne was more qualified than me.
No,
And
I'm not
that
saying
he's
that.
an expert. No, just listen to me, please. And that he's an expert, but we employ experts. That's what you do. So, thank you.
I mean it as, I said, but I'll just,
So we're live.
I'll word it differently then.
We're live.
Go for it, Rebecca.
Oh,
Good evening, everybody. This time we're going to meeting to order. I should be joining very shortly the admin building. Should we please have attendance? Roll call.
Pledge allegiance.
You want to do pledge of allegiance?
Pledge allegiance.
Sorry. Oh, yes, that's right. Pledge allegiance. I just can't write, so I apologize. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with indivisible and justice for liberty and justice. Okay.
Oh,
Now we can have a roll call. I apologize.
Okay. Rebecca Baer.
Present.
George Andrews,
President,
Wayne Roner,
Here.
Rich Lamus,
Present.
4 present.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented with board members reserving the right to add to the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our previous month's meeting as presented?
second.
Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Can one of you guys please take the items on the agenda since I do not have it in front of me? That would be fabulous.
A motion to approve the purchase of Max cases in the amount of $51,365.25 for the Chromebooks from SHI and an Omnia contract. Grades K, not 5 and 9.
Did we already see this last time or is this another one? I remember seeing this a month or two ago.
I believe these are the cases. What we saw before were the computers. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong.
That is exactly correct.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
These are cases.
For the devices that you just approved. Yep.
All right. Very good. And then the next motion is to approve the purchase of wireless microphones at the high school South Auditorium at a cost of $27,770.69 from B&H, which is part of an Omnia contract. Brian, do you want to give some backstory to this?
Yes, we've been having trouble with the wireless mic system at South Auditorium. We replaced the North Auditorium approximately 2 years ago. So this is kind of to get them up to speed as well. We did notice some audio issues at the last play that they had.
And- I'm sorry, and these are comparable products to what we bought for North, which had a seamless production.
Are these comparable or exactly the same? Or
Brian,
Comparable, the model may not be the exact same because that project was about 2.5 years ago.
Okay. And did we have any consultation with the the company that helped us do the auditorium, like JTL or something?
We did not. We got two prices. CSI, which is now Keystone, provided the microphones for the North Campus. When we did those in 2022, we consulted with them again. And this time we went and got additional pricing, and we found better pricing at B&H than what Keystone was able to provide.
So these are better than the Keystone, which used to be CSI. Okay.
Yeah, I believe it was about a $20,000 decrease in pricing from what CSI/Keystone was able to provide.
All right, next is to accept the following reimbursement checks from Spring. It looks like $52,900 from Resica, $84,482 from North High School, for a total of $137,382, which goes back into the capital reserve.
so this was, we did a prepayment for the train projects. And it actually came in lower than the prepayment, so they are refunding us.
Nice.
Funding is
It's
good.
going in the right direction.
Yep.
All right. Super. Next one, we have approve the 5-year beverage Arvada Coca-Cola contract. Coke will donate a total of $128,427 over the 5-year term.
Is this, how is this different from what we had last month? Like what was added or what enhancements did we get?
So we didn't get enhancements. The board had some questions about packaging and there was some concern that one was a 12-pack and not a 24-pack. So I believe they just cleaned up that language, but the numbers are all the same. This was removed from the board agenda last month with some questions.
So it's cost effective to do this. I know the question was that it wasn't, the pricing didn't align, but because it's actually 24-pack, not 12, it is cost effective to do that then.
Yeah, it was a 24-pack, not a 12-pack.
Okay, and then
Yep.
perfect. And then the other question I had was, so PTOs, do they have to order, or clubs when they do their events, do they have to order through Coca-Cola, or do they go out and purchase on their own as they were doing before, but they would buy Coca-Cola products only?
It says no competitive products may be sold, dispensed, or served anywhere on the campus.
Correct. And that was always the case before, but what would happen before is PTOs would go to BJ's and buy Pepsi products and sell them when we were Pepsi. So my question was, and it was before, is are they required to go directly through Coca-Cola through this contract to purchase, or can they go to BJ's or whomever with their coupons and buy the products?
They do not have to, they have the option.
Okay.
But
So it says if during the term, school districts elect to contract with concessionaire, we can, I'm reading it now. I do not believe they have to.
Do we have any? So the pricing schedule is the raw case exclusive of taxes, deposits, handling fees and recycling fees. What are the handling fees?
Shipping costs? I don't know.
And we don't have deposit fees here in Pennsylvania, so would that be excluded from ours?
Well, it's already excluded, so
And I'm looking at a 24 count of Coke being $12.90, which seems pretty reasonable, right? That's not a bad price. I don't drink soda, so I don't know, but
it's a good price.
it's a big price. The 24 pack of water is $7.42.
That sounds expensive for water, but
Why can't we just give water, like sell water?
do we have to use Coke's brand water as well? We can't buy like Giant brand or Price Chopper when they're on sale. It has to be Coke water now.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That's expensive for water. You can get a 32 pack of Giant water for like $4.
I guess the question is that I would have is, can we separate this contract in a way that allows people to have access to vending machines without the rest of the district being committed into the rest of this for purchasing? I guess what I'm trying to say is this, right? Our students probably prefer Gatorade to purchase between game, like at concessionaire at the high schools or between games, right? Can we separate those two contracts, or like, can we just say, you know what, Coca-Cola, you get to do all our vending machines. We know you're giving us back X amount of dollars for we get a rebate of $1 per case and we get. But these are the vending machine prices. Of like. The vending machine prices right now are like. We're getting some money back too. I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't really know.
Right, because it sounds like we can't sell Gatorade anymore at a football game or a basketball game. It has to be the Coke
Powerade.
brand
Would have to.
Powerade now.
And honestly, we were given a Coke Pepsi,
Option,
yeah, and we chose the Coke option. This committee chose the Coke option.
right,
So we went with the Coke option. If we wanted the Gatorade and Pepsi, we could have done the other. What you're asking is, can we just do vending machines and not our concession
right,
stands?
because I think the
Right?
staff are more, like, if I was a staff person, I'd probably be more interested in Coke products. But in the field house, when we're doing concessionaire stuff, I think having a mix at our own discretion is better than being stuck to a contract. I think the convenience piece of this, right, is for the teachers and staff in buildings. That's what I think, look at this and say, this contract is for. We're getting some money back from it, that's very nice, but I'm just wondering, I'm not asking. I don't know. Does any of this make sense?
Yes. I don't know the answers to this questions. I was not in on this, but I can certainly pull it up and have some conversations with Coca-Cola and see if we can delineate out to just vending machines and not concessions. My guess is the scholarship fee and the sponsorship fee would decrease. So they're giving us $8,000 a year in both over 5 years, that would significantly decrease. But are we comfortable with that? So Keith is in the public, so he cannot, so although he's a board member, he would have to wait until public participation,
Or
Yes,
text
thank
one of
you.
us.
or he can text a board member to ask his question. Thank you, Terrell. And I know that's finicky.
I guess with Rich, I'm just concerned about what our students would prefer. Gatorade versus Powerade. I don't like either one, but that's just me. But I don't know what our students would prefer. I know teachers probably prefer Coke when it comes to their vending. So I don't know. That's why I'm just asking those questions that I'm asking. So I don't mean to be difficult.
Yeah, and I think when I work concessionaire, which I do. I think we sell a lot more Gatorade than we sell everything else in the field in the concession stand. So I don't know if that would hold true for Powerade, because I know what's happening is the football players are coming up and they're buying one, and some other teams are coming up and like that are not playing the game right then, and we're coming up and buying things, and I don't know. That's just been my experience, but I don't know what they actually do on football nights. Is that a whole different thing? I don't know.
I know when I do concession for soccer, we sell a lot of Gatorade.
Right.
I don't know.
But I don't
Very
know
little
if that means
soda.
we wouldn't sell Powerade. or
Right, I don't
just
know.
Looking for a sports drink,
Right, or are they just looking for a sports drink? right?
correct?
Yeah, personally, I don't think there's much of a difference between Powerade and Gatorade. You're right, Gatorade seems to be the most popular drink, at least when I was in the concession stand for a football game. Last year, not this past season, we ran out of Gatorade / Powerade before we ran out of soda. I don't see much of a difference between the two products. What I'm saying is they'll buy it. I mean, if I go down to Southern Lehigh for a football game, gee, I want a Gatorade. Well, no, we're selling Powerade, and I want Powerade. You know.
I think, okay. Those are my questions. We can digest that a little more.
Sure.
All right. Next up is the 2025-26 budget presentation.
Okay. Hold on, let me. Okay, so Mr. Bard is unable to be here, so I am going to serve in his capacity. So be very kind to me, please. So we had presented to you previously a budget, and we're going to give you updates because we've spent the last 2 months reviewing the budget and trying to get closer to our actual revenues and expenditures, as well as decrease our current expenditures for the upcoming school year. So this is the market value and assessment update for April of where we are comparison. So Monroe County, the assessment will be 35.9 million less from last year, and Pike County will be about $400,000 more. And we have a real estate loss cash value of 1.6, which is the Exploria properties. We will not feel the other property until next school year. And then there's the value of each mill. So we are going to present to you multiple options tonight. Not that you're going to decide on an option, but just so you know what your options are of what a tax increase could look like should we choose a tax increase. Again, we're not making decisions now, we're just letting you know. So the first option is a 0% tax increase and then the STEB rebalancing. So that chart shows you the rebalancing. The annual increase to a homeowner over a year would be $0 for Monroe County and $3.69 for Pike County, which would actually, because we're rebalancing, have a $1.6 million lost revenue. And then there's the assessed value. So that's where we are currently with a 0% tax increase. Again, that 1.6 is that lost tax revenue from that Exploria property. The next one is exactly what it would look like. So our revenue would be 188 million. Our expenditures would be 211 million with a $24.2 million projected deficit. Based on the anticipated general fund balance, we have about 50.4 million. We originally anticipated a $17.4 million deficit. We'll probably realize a $7 million deficit. And with the deficit for the next school year, we would end June of 2026 with a projected $20.1 million in the fund balance and continue with 15.2 in the capital fund. The second option is a 2% tax increase. So those are the millage rates that it would be. It would be an annual increase for a Monroe County house of $57.72 and for Pike County about $55, which means for a monthly increase for Monroe County of just under $5 and for Pike County just under $5. It would increase our revenue by 1.6 million, which if you remember, we're losing 1.6 in that tax revenue. This would increase it by 1.6. So it almost makes us flush. The good news is that we have spent, oh, this is an older one. I apologize. Pete sent me an older one. We have a budget decrease of about $2 million. So we have spent a significant amount of time looking at staffing through attrition, and then also looking at each department's budget and decreasing budget without impacting programming. And we'll have about a $2 million budget decrease. So when you look at all of that, the revenue is increased because of taxes, about 190 million. The expenditures are 211.8 million. The deficit decreases to 21.6, which changes the fund balance to 21.7 million. Am I going too quickly?
No.
Option 3 would be a 3.5% tax increase. This would be an annual increase for Monroe County homes of about $116, for Pike County homes, $105. If you look at the monthly increase, it would be just under $10 per house in Monroe County and just under $9 per house in Monroe County. And this would increase our revenue by $3.2 million. So following the same metric, if you look at the budget, our revenue would be 191.7 million. Expenditures would stay the same. The deficit drops to 20 million. And then the general fund balance in June of 2026 would be 23.3 million. Option 4 is raising taxes to the Act 1 index, which would be 5.6%. This would have an annual increase of $184 for Monroe County, $166 for Pike County. At the monthly basis for Monroe, it would be about $15.50. For Pike, it would just be under 14, and we would be increasing our revenue by $5.2 million. The next chart obviously increases revenue to 193.7 million. Expenditures stay the same. The deficit drops to 18 million. And then the fund balance would end next school year with about $25.4 million in it, in the general fund balance. The next charts are just updates on kind of expenditures and details. So we've gone over salaries and benefits are increasing. Salary, I've never, ever had a world where salary and benefits decreases. It's just not the way we work as a society. Professional and technical services are increasing because of special education services through the IU. Our purchase property services is increasing by 2.4 million. Charter school, other purchases, services, which is charter school tuition, out of district placement and liability insurance is increasing as well. Supplies, which is not just paper and pencil, right? So it's our utilities is increasing by about 9 million. Property is increasing about 2.8 million for new equipment. And our debt service is actually decreasing by about 4%. Now, the next charts, and I'm not going to read all these numbers because I want to be kind to Patricia, who is making our minutes. This is so you can see just where we're at with each department budget. So these are individual departments and where we are compared to the second round. So almost every department except for mine has decreased their budgets, and the reality is my budget increased because what they had allocated for mileage just wasn't going to cover it, because I am apparently more mobile than your previous superintendent. So we just wanted to show that. So as you can see, all of our departments have done a really good job. Human resource was a weird line item with legal fees, I believe, under human resources. So that's why their budget has gone up. That was coded into another account, so it's not actually more, it's just moved from one account to another. But as you can see, all of our administrators and staff have done a really good job looking at their budget, doing a refresh. I had asked for them to cut by 5 to 10%, and they've done a nice job of looking at it and seeing where they could cut costs. The next one is some resources that we really can't decrease too much. Charter school, the IU, computer leases, debt service, all of that. We don't have a lot of flexibility with it. So that's where we are now. The right column is is the change from the last time you've seen this. And then the next slide is by department and by school. And every school, every department has done a really good job of looking at the services they offer, looking at the resources that they're intending on purchasing, and decreasing spending. The next slide, which is an upside down line graph, is the budgetary forecast, and it is very, 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 very scary. And it basically shows you the annual surplus versus the deficit. So, this is not, hold on. I'm gonna stop sharing real quick. Because I have an old.
The current one is in the agenda.
Yeah, but it's on the slide deck.
It is.
It's a PDF. Okay, excellent. So this is where we would be with our deficit over the years. The gray option is a 0% increase. The red option is that 2% increase. The blue option is a 3.5% increase. And then the brown option is a 5.6% increase. So you can see kind of over the years of where we would be, because just remember, if we raise taxes this year, that compounds in. The next slide is the projected fund balance. And again, the colors are the same. So the gray option is a 0%, red is a 2%, blue is a 3.5, and brown is a 5.6. So it has somewhere in the 26-27 school year, with any of those options, according to these projections, that the fund balance is at 0. And then all of them get gravely
So the
distorted.
question I have is that when you're doing these charts, it's assuming a one and done. It's not assuming, 5 this year and maybe 1 the following year. It's assuming 5% and then nothing else
Correct.
until 2020.
Correct. Yes. This is just based on this 1% this time.
And it doesn't assume increasing state aid every year, which we're expected to have for next.
What fair
cycle.
funding would be.
Well, that's part of.
Or
that's what's
change in
going to happen.
cyber charter reform, correct?
Or our teachers who will be retiring. In large
Right.
amounts soon, I suppose, because
Mhm.
many of them are
2 to 3 years, yeah.
2 to 3 years out,
Mhm.
right? And. I guess my question is there any other items that we can find savings? In our expenditures? I mean, the real story here is, how do we reduce expenditures a little more? Without damaging. The services we provide.
So to me, the biggest concern that we have in the budget is the $9 million for cyber charter.
Sure.
So I met with our director of ESASD today, and Mr. Snyder. We started talking about how to start to earn some of that business back
Right.
and promote it. And we have some really good ideas. We have some strategies, some marketing, as well as kind of personal contacts with each family. As I talk to our administrative team, we're literally, there's 368 students out there in just cyber charter. If we can get 20 back, we make a positive impact on the budget. So that's going to be an actual goal as we go into the summer and next school year to start to earn that back. And if we can get a percentage of them back, $1 million, 2 million, we can
Sure.
cut off without doing any negative impact to our programming.
Right. You had also mentioned about maybe K through third.
K through second, so
Second.
we're going to start that right away, which is another, and we're going to market exactly what that looks like. Because what's happening in our in our charter school, I'm sorry, in our cyber school, is that, oh, Patricia, I'm saying all these words over, I apologize. So in our current cyber academy, it starts at 3rd grade. So our families who want that model for their students are starting in kindergarten somewhere else. And they're getting comfortable in that section, that environment, and with that school and with that system, and then they're there for 3 years. And if I'm a parent, I'm not going to want to pivot suddenly from one school to another when they've established relationships with teachers, with students, all of that. So the fact that we don't start at kindergarten, I actually think impacts us. So we're going to start at kindergarten next year. So that was part of our planning session today of what does that look like? And how do we get that word out sooner than later? We're going to do a giant survey to all of our cyber charter families with information and then asking them and questions. And the main question is why? I would like to know why. Why did they choose to go elsewhere? And then would they be comfortable sitting down and having conversations with us?
Right.
So to me, when I look at the budget, that's one line item where it's like, man, that makes me super uncomfortable because we are just sending that money out and we have no accountability for where it goes or how it's used.
Understood.
Mhm.
And then we just have to counteract all those years we didn't have K through 2, where people say, oh, well, they don't offer that. So now I can take it's changing that discussion out in the community somehow.
Correct, absolutely.
Any other costs that we could work on? And I'm not asking you to broadcast that out because we just don't know. But
Yeah,
I
so
think it's super important that we find expenditures to reduce.
long range planning is looking at a 3-tier busing system as opposed to the 2-tier that we have. There's a significant cost impact with that. We're looking at also streams of how to increase our revenue.
Mhm.
So maybe we can't cut our expenditures because 72% of your budget is personnel.
So,
That then directly impacts programming when you start to look at that. $16 million is debt service. So there's a lot of our fixed costs that we don't have. Well, maybe we can come in on the other side and look at revenue. And how can we increase our revenue streams?
And I know one of the things we talked about in EPR was bringing in-house, almost not in-house, but partnering with universities to teach the classes here versus, because we pay now, like for our future educators, for example, we have a budget item to pay Northampton for our classes that our future educators take. And I know you and Mr. Snyder were working on that, and I know we had a presentation on that the other day about partnering with another university where we can have them, I guess, audit our classes to make sure that we qualify for our classes to be.
No, we qualify. They already.
I didn't know if we did the audit.
Yeah, no, they've already agreed to it. And that would have no more than a $50,000 savings.
But still something.
But still, it's still moving in the right direction. And I would say that everything we're talking about is how can we look at savings and how can we do it a little bit differently to cut costs without impacting program.
Mhm. I think one of the stories that we should be telling is how our budget, we're looking at this and saying we have this deficit that's looming across the board, but I think part of the story is also, we're also gonna have a bunch of retirements, that's gonna change our proportion of the salary ranges. We have the debt that's going away that in 2031. We have all these other things that are happening, and I think that part of this is educating our representatives and our senator, like, hey, this is what's happening. This is why the money that we're being allocated now from the state is really gonna help us in 2030 when we're able to just say, all right, well, we're done with these other expenses. And the impact will be, at that point, then we can be looking at these reductions
Dropping millage.
in millage. Can't happen before then, but it could happen.
And do you think?
And I know I've met with both Tara Probst and Rosemary Brown, and I've had those conversations.
Right, okay.
Absolutely.
And do you think commercial real estate values are ever gonna go back up as the economy changes, if it ever does?
So it's not that commercial real estate,
Values,
it's not that they went down, it's that people are having them assessed lower and are using the system to their advantage.
well, do you think that's ever going to change? That's my question, I guess.
So I think people are going to stop using the system to their
You
advantage.
think the system will
No.
change?
I think that if we fight it, like we've agreed, recently, I think if we fight it, then people will know that we are responsible to our taxpayer. And that if they own commercial property in our community, they're expected to pay their fair share. I think that's the message we're going to send.
Like, I see our income tax revenues that we get are only increasing, so people, are making more. But yet the commercial is what's hurting us. That's what I see. I don't know if that's accurate to say.
It definitely has an impact, so it's $1.6 million this year, and then next year it'll be more. Absolutely. The next chart, when you look at the comparison of options 1, 2, 3, 4, that's just a very kind of nice little snapshot of if we have a 0%, a 2%, a 3.5, and a 5.6% tax increase of what the revenues look like compared to expenditures, compared to the projected deficit, and then what the monthly increase for families would be across either county. That to me is the picture. Then the last slide is just the budget timeline. So we will present this presentation again to the full board in the April board meeting. Then in May, the finance committee would make a recommendation of which budget to move forward with. So are you going to make a recommendation of a 0, a 2, a 3.5, or a 5.6? That's just a recommendation of which budget you want us to put forward to the board for preliminary. That's not the full decision. You could still retract that and make some changes before the June final vote and approval. Any questions? Please feel free to ask. Pete.
When you, I think I got it right, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
When you give these different options, it's, let's say option 4. We do
Okay.
Option 4. We do 5.6 this year, and it would be 0 from the other years after that.
We can't.
I can't promise that.
No, but I mean, this deficit is 5.6 this year and we still have an 18.65. If everything's remained the same, the other years would be 0.
So this is just for the 25-26. So if you raise taxes 5.6%, the deficit projected as of today would be $18 million.
Back in 4 years from now.
No,
Sure.
this is literally just this year. So this chart is just this school year, just for next school year, 25-26.
Okay, that's.
Yeah.
So it's just for the one school year. So if we didn't do anything, we'd have a projection of 23 million.
Correct.
And next year we have to
It could be.
look at that what it would be for the next year.
Correct.
But it would not have anything to do with. So how do we get, so why do we have the 88 million 5 years down the road when we show? We show back here, all these going down for, other years.
So that is showing that you are, the budget is in a deficit spending model.
I understand that.
So then your savings account, your fund balance would continually decrease every year if you continue to do deficit spending.
Yeah, I understand that, but this is really, we're just talking about this year, so why do we have all these other years?
So that is the 5-year projection.
Okay, if we, for the this
Based-
year and nothing else for the other
Correct.
years.
Yes, yes.
So if we raise taxes this year, George, and then say next year and the year after, we're not gonna do anything, we're just gonna do status quo.
Yeah, I'm not-
It's gonna be arching very much downwards.
that's what I'm saying.
That's what this
But-
chart is.
Yeah, okay. But that's really a false. It may be true, but you can liars can give numbers and numbers don't lie. And this is what we're doing, saying it, the numbers aren't
It
lying.
could happen.
But to me, it's a false. That's really a false chart. Because we could say, okay, we'll do 0 this year and we'll have the increase next year. And then the year after, we could do 0 this year and 2% next year and 2% the year after
So
that.
this chart makes assumptions, but I think it's
It
important
makes
that,
some assumptions, I think, that make it look worse than it really is.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
So,
it's a-
wait, hold on. You have to remember, it's just taking a point in time, this one snapshot,
Yeah.
right here. A whole different conversation would be, hey, we know we have the structural deficit, we know. And then put into the inputs in there, what that would look like over 4 or 5 years, right? That's not what we're doing right now, that's the problem.
But the public's gonna think, okay, if we don't do anything this year, in 5 years, we're gonna have an $88 million
Right.
deficit. That's what the public's gonna think.
They should.
That's not true.
Well,
Which means that
it could be true.
somewhere along the line, we're gonna have to raise taxes.
It could be.
And I'm not arguing that.
But it could be true, because if we raise it 3%, 3.5% this year, we still have a $20 million deficit. If we raise it 3.5% next year, maybe we have a $15 million deficit. We still have a deficit.
Yeah, I understand that,
And that's why, yeah.
but to me, these
But
numbers
my
aren't really
point
true.
is 3.5% is not gonna fix our deficit
I understand.
overnight.
I-
Even 3.5% over 5 years isn't gonna fix our deficit.
but this is based on the information that we have today, right? So a lot of things can change. The state budget
Oh,
can
yeah.
change, funding can change, a lot of things can change, but we still should be projecting out and having some idea of the future. This is not intended to scare anyone.
I think it is.
Okay, I'm telling you, I did not bring it,
I don't think you did it.
but my words were, it's not intended to scare. and
I
you said
agree
you
with you.
think it is.
I agree
Right.
totally that you're not trying to scare
Okay,
anybody.
right.
I'm saying it's just, that's what it's going to do, is what I'm saying.
Right, and my hope is that people are listening to our discussions and saying, this is based on the information we have, this point in time, what it could look like if the board chooses these options in the 25-26 school year and no other options of a 0% tax increase.
And I don't think people in general think that far, or that in depth or cerebral. I think they see this chart and say, if we don't do taxes, we're gonna have an $88 million deficit.
We will.
And
Well,
if we're not, that's not true. That's if you do this for
I
all
don't,
these years, but if we do it just for this, at the end of this year, we're gonna have, when we do nothing, we're gonna have a $23 million. That is true. Or maybe it's not, we don't know, that's why we had the other conversation.
I don't believe
But-
that.
But if you say, well, we're saying for the next 5 years, we're not gonna have any increase. We're not gonna have this, we're gonna have 0 increase or no tax increase, then we're gonna have an $88 million deficit. Yes, we will have an $88 million or whatever it's gonna be. But I don't think as a school board, or you yourself would ever let that happen. We didn't have nothing this year, we're gonna.
Well, I want to be clear, I have no control over it.
we-
You as a school board do. So
But-
our job is to give you information. So this is just one piece of information that if you decide based on these colors, this tax increase and no other tax increase, this is where we could be based on
I-
today's information.
I agree, that's what you're saying. I'm not so sure the public will understand that.
So tell me how to help it. Tell me how to help the public understand.
Well,
So we
I-
do
it-
finance committee meetings, we do this at the budget, at the board
I
meetings,
would,
how can I
I
help
would
the
say
public?
let's say we say no more, but you have to let the public know, at some point in time, we're gonna have to raise taxes. Is it, there's no doubt that at some point in time with salaries going up, with cost of all going, school, running schools going up, at some point, we're gonna have to raise taxes.
I don't disagree.
That's
Huh?
something.
Yeah, I
That's
don't,
helpful.
I agree with you, yes. Wayne, you had a question?
I have a question.
Yes.
Or comment?
What role, now I'm looking at a forecast, what role is committed and assigned figures playing in this future budget deficit?
I will
And the
get you.
reason why I'm asking that question is there is no specific formula regarding committed and assigned. That's all arbitrary. That is a decision made by each board, school district board. And in this case, our school district has chosen to commit $30 million. 24 million, which is for future expenses. So what role, in other school districts may be putting in 4 million, between 4 and 9 million consistently during the research that I've done. So I want to know why this school district, as in the very recent past, has chosen to really go off board and take 24 million for future expenses, when in the past we were anywhere from 4 to 9 million, has been our history.
So I will research that, but I can't
I
speak
will
on,
tell you why.
go for it.
Okay, so first of all, our committed fund balance, right? Is the money we said, we as a board said, yep, we're gonna throw this money into the pot. It's a fund balance that we can adjust, we can move.
That's right.
Any way we want to, right? Basically, with this budget, that fund balance goes to zero and it starts going negative after about 2 years, if nothing else changes and we spend the same way and we receive the same. So the committed and assigned are just the pots of money we say we're putting that into. They disappear as we use the money. It goes away, that pot. It's all used up. So they're committed and assigned is just are words that we use to say, we anticipate using the money in this way. We anticipate using the money in that way. We put $24 million into a pot that we said, we're going to use it to cover the cost of PSERS and healthcare costs. And actually, that's what we're doing. When we're taking out negative, when we're seeing those fund balances used to cover the deficit, we're really using it for that purpose. PSERS, which is a lot of money, and healthcare, which is a lot of money. So we're doing what we said we were doing. And we're using it in a way we kind of expected to use it, right? I think the big piece here, folks, to remember is that over the next 2, 3, 4 years, we're gonna have a number of teachers that are gonna retire. That means the teachers that are making, $80,000, $90,000 a year are now gonna be going to $60,000, $65,000 a year. That's a difference of, in some cases, maybe 40,000 a year per teacher. PSERS and healthcare and taxes and everything else that goes into that person, which could be a difference of a swing of each teacher of probably around $70,000 per teacher. You times that out by the number of teachers and staff that would be retiring in that period. Remember, we opened up 4 schools within a 2-3 year period, had to hire all those teachers on. And now we're saying, well, we may not need to replace all those teachers because our class sizes are different, our population is different. So what's going to happen is that our 70% ratio of salaries will drop, okay? And basically what's gonna happen is, as teachers retire, as they should, because they've earned it and they can go out and live that great life for them. We're not gonna be replacing all those teachers. The new teachers we bring on are not gonna be at that same level. So we're gonna probably lose, I imagine, let's say, probably close to, I don't know, $4 to $5 million a year in salary costs right off the bat. And according to our legislators, they've committed raising our revenue from the state to balance out, to kind of reimburse us for all those years we didn't get the right amount of money.
Right.
So as that happens, these two lines are crossing, we'll actually start seeing a place where we can be in a better place fiscally. And that's gonna happen over the next 4 or 5 years.
Right.
We just have to get through the next 4 or 5 years. I
Right.
think that's really the biggest piece of this. So there's gonna be a bunch of things that are happening all at once. If we get some of those students back from charter schools, and we have teachers retire, and we start getting more revenue from the state, we're gonna be in a very good place.
That's right.
And that's when we can
That's
start
right.
lowering our mills. But we have to do it with that revenue, that fund balance that we've committed and assigned for this time now. That's why we did this. It is exactly for this time. As long as we can keep, we're projecting a $17 million deficit this year. We're only gonna probably realize the 7. That means we still have $10 million more in that. And then next year, if we can do our best to keep our costs as low as we can, we'll be able to move that down the road. We're kind of kicking the can down the road. But if we can, the more that we can save in expense in the district, the better off we are gonna be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense,
I
and I agree
understand.
with that, yeah.
So how we get it done, right? And that's the thing. So that's,
I'm just saying, it's not done deliberately, but this one graph. Or the bar or whatever is showing, a catastrophe basically to the public, and. We are in better shape than what that would show, that's where my issue is, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have a tax increase. Yeah, and I'm not saying we should, I'm just saying the graph is not. Telling really the whole story, we don't, let's say
that's
we don't
fine,
have
too.
one this year. We may have to have a 5 next year, or may have to have a 2 next year.
Correct.
And then the next year, we may have to have. We wouldn't have this graph at all if we've been having let's say 2% every year for the last 10 years. We've only had one tax increase in the last, I think,
It was 1.5%.
13, 14 years.
I think next month's budget will be interesting to see.
I agree. I
And so I think our job is to communicate to our superintendent, let's find some more expense, let's see what we can do internally magic wise, and
Peter's not here today, but one of the questions I would ask today is, where do we stand with our current fiscal year? Since we are in the final quarter of our budget. That's why I'm always harping for a balance sheet with discussion so that I'm used to having a surplus in my 10 years. I'm witnessing that.
It's weird that we don't this year all of a sudden.
so right now,
Consistently.
it's in the presentation, we saw that we budgeted a $17.4 million deficit. And the anticipated right now is 7 million.
Correct.
That's what's literally in the document right here. So it's a $10.4 million swing. If we can hold that real close, we still have a good balanced budget to.
Yes.
Right.
so then why would we need to have a tax increase going next year?
I guess
Right
now,
this graph.
Here's one of the arguments that Mario Scavello kept bringing up time and time again when we would go to his office trying to fight for additional state funding.
right.
Okay, the unfair funding formula. We're all well aware of it. And Mario would sit and look at the three of us and say, you're wasting my time, because he's aware of our healthy fund balance. I'm not fighting for you. When I see your general fund balance right now, if someone were to say, I want to see your 4 accounts, it's $114+ million. No one understands about the committed and assigned and the gross amount of millions associated with those accounting principles that we employ. And again, it's legal, I get it. The Attorney General or Auditor General did that written report where he frowns upon that accounting method because it is indirectly hiding dollars.
So if we didn't have that fund balance, we would be raising our taxes up to the Act 1 index over
Every
the
year.
last year, this year, next year. We would have had to, absolutely without any question, had to have done that. Or we would have had to cut programs, cut athletic.
I don't see that.
See, I can't help you with that because that's unfortunate for you. But the reality is, without that fund balance, we would have to have raised all the way to the Act 1 index, and maybe not even we would have been in very bad financial state. We would have cut teachers, cut programs, cut lots of things. But because we have that fund balance, because for the past 10 years, like you said, we always had this budget surplus coming in because we couldn't figure out how to balance our budget to get us, to the zero amount every year.
Well, we did worst case.
Well, I know. But what happened is we always had more money coming in. Now we have more money going out. And we've taken that committed and assigned balance and said, we're going to use it for these purposes. And that's exactly what we're using it for. And so over the next 2 years, if we can get as close as we can, not screwing around with the budget too much, we might not have to raise taxes, but that budget, that fund balance is going to go away or get down to hopefully no more than, less than like $7 or $8 million. That's where you probably want to be. There's a couple different philosophies on that. You probably should have a fund balance that keeps enough money for operating for at least 4 months. Because if the state doesn't have money or that doesn't pass a budget, federal government doesn't pass a budget, you can go 3 to 4 months and still have that much money in reserve. And if you think about it, that's what we have right now. When you have a budget of a $200 million budget, and you have $50 million in your budget fund balance, that's about where you should be, because that gives you the cushion of 4 months reserve. We're gonna blow through it and we're gonna drop it down in the next 2 years.
But to Mara's point is, let's say we had, that's 25% of.
And at that time, that was $35 million. At the time he was in office.
Yeah, we were about 150 million, right?
No, our budget was about 150.
Yeah.
Our budget reserve was 35.
Yeah.
Mario couldn't see the forest for the trees. He didn't understand that, hey, you should have that in your budget reserve. And around the state, you're looking at that, it's a lot of money, but reality is that budget reserve protected us in case the federal government didn't pay its bills, the state didn't pay its bills. And that's where we are. And the other piece to remember is that back in 2005, 2012,
I remember that.
we had 7 or 8 different legislators in our county and in Pike County. We didn't have just 3 people that we can go to or 4 people we can go to. It was divvied up in a way that our county didn't have one state senator who was responsible for us. And we didn't have one state representative who was responsible for us. It was divvied up. We were all over the place. We had people from Lackawanna, all over the place. There was not one person that was advocating for our districts. And
We're the stepchild.
we were the red-headed stepchild. Sorry, guys. Anyway, I'm done.
And if you remember too, when the state they struggled to pass the budget, there were school districts panicking
Right,
because they did not have the reserve.
right.
Panicking, like they did not know how they were gonna pay our teachers. They were talking about shutting down,
They were getting a loan.
or they were getting money from
Yes.
somewhere else.
They were getting loans.
That's it.
Yeah, and we didn't have to.
The other thing that happens with our budget reserve right now, our fund balance, is that we get the interest off of that.
Yeah.
And that also helps we get interest off of that, and that helps our bottom line.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But when you said 9 to, let's say 12 is a good fund balance, what we should.
Well, right, well, think about it, what's 25% of $200,000? What's 25%?
25% of 200,000, 200 is 50.
And that's where we are,
That's-
and we're dropping that every year.
That's where we are now.
And that's what we're dropping. So think about you should have a quarter, in my opinion, you should be holding a quarter in reserve just to make sure that in assigned and committed, just to keep it there so that you're protected. And we're losing it, and that's fine. That's what we designed it to be. It's gonna drop every year.
Well, my issue is. There is no method, we're arbitrarily choosing a number. So,
Yes, you're absolutely correct. And we're allowed to.
Yes.
We are allowed to arbitrarily collect,
Yes.
because we're the board.
Yes.
Now, we can also arbitrarily say, well, we're gonna move some of that $24 million from this committed pot to that.
Yes, we can, yeah,
And there's no,
yeah,
it's legal, it's right, and
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with it. And we're using it the way we said we were gonna use it. I think that's really the important part. In my opinion.
All I want my community to know is that, our fund balance in my 10 years. Was moving in the right direction. If I were to look at all that's another thing I'd like to see back. We used to have our financial reports, like go on the website. And I could pull up a 2015 financial report, and ever since we did the website change. We no longer have a library of financial reporting. And the reason why I know that is because I was trying to research our history regarding committed funds and assigned funds. And I used to have that availability. I know when I went on to Stroudsburg, they have it way back many years, and most school districts do. And when we changed our website, that never came back. Our archive info is still gone.
That's an easy fix.
Me personally, I'm still not a fan of new websites. It's not as informative as what we used to have.
I mean, we could talk about this another time, but I'd love to know what other information is missing.
Minutes. A lot of information, it's a whole new website. Disappointing.
Okay, my presentation is done. Thank you so much.
Okay, next item on the
Next item is
agenda.
high school south track repair, javelin and long jump from the properties and facilities in about $8,000. And we also have the garbage bid results from waste management and 5-year contract in 1938, 523.92. We have JTL boiler and hot water heater notice to proceed. The JM Hill flooring abatement bid results were Shade Environmental. And the bus depot option 3E. Up to $300,000.
I thought, properties and facilities, we said it was gonna be around 125,000.
It is, but they can go up to, but not exceed, right? Is that what it is?
Because we don't have a direct quote. We had somebody give us a general number.
Yeah,
I don't know why it says up to 300,000. The 125.
I would accept 300,000 way out of the ballpark. That's,
So the
So is that
125 is
at least
what Daryl gave us.
Was 125. I don't know why
Yeah.
it says 300,000.
but it's still, because I wouldn't have said yes to 300,000.
I wouldn't have wanted you to.
Yet we have it on here for finance up 300,000.
We
It
can
says-
change that when we vote.
Option 4 says at least 300,000.
At least, and it says at least 300,000. I would
This isn't
never,
even the right document.
No,
no, it says at least 300,000.
No, but the document on the agenda isn't even the right document.
Oh dear.
oh, no.
Well, I took it for being the right doc. When it says at least 300,000, I would have
Yeah,
never
at least it
accepted,
says, so is this the wrong one?
accepted that,
I mean, that's not the document from PNF.
Well, that's option 4, but you're mentioning 3E on the agenda.
That's,
Yeah,
Right.
and this is, and actually, that's what you had, this is the document you had on the agenda.
Mhm.
So that's
Which one are
exactly,
we going for? Is it, they said 3E, but what's 3E?
Hold on one second. That's the problem. The item is wrong. So just remove that because that's our internal error of communication.
okay, so that's,
And it wasn't 3E. 3E was remove it because it,
I'm confused.
Well,
You should be.
Maggie, for clarity, if you don't mind, my recollection of that meeting, for property and facilities. That was where you, shared with us the, hand-drawn sketch, I guess that was by Daryl Miller.
correct. And this document was supposed to be updated because the option 3E was supposed to be cost of 125,000.
Yeah.
So that was supposed to be
So that's
updated.
what we recommended moving forward.
Correct,
Yeah.
but this number wasn't updated and this document also isn't on the finance committee.
No, it's not.
It's the original document.
Yes.
So you can either amend it to 3E. Add 125,000 or pull it off and we can update the information.
I'd like to update, have correct information.
Yeah.
I have no problem.
We can still
Either
have
way,
it
it's
on the
fine
board
with me. I
agenda.
just needed to.
We can still have it on the board agenda.
Right,
So we're with option 3E, 125,000
okay,
to start exploring that and getting quotes. Yep, okay.
okay.
Yeah, towards that.
Because what we were looking to do was have a bathroom and a
Kitchenette.
storage area and then a lounge on the right-hand
Yeah,
side
basically,
of the
we're-
current
yeah.
auxiliary building.
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes,
that's basically what
correct.
we did.
Yep.
That's,
Okay,
yep, and we will clean that up. I apologize. I didn't look at this agenda clearly.
not a problem, but I caught it, I saw it. and I-
Yeah, good catch. Absolutely.
next item is the CHA invoices A and B. And applications of payment number 3. The Scranton electric heating and cooling for the field house equipment replacement amount $28,276. And then capital payments. These are just regular payments that we have for the scoreboard, sound, baseball field drainage, auditorium lighting, elevators, all fun stuff. Okay. And then we have some recommendations from the education programs and resources, which is the purchase of writable. Or MHM
Yep.
or HMH in the amount of 31,200. We have the recommendation to approve our pre-college agreement with Black and White College, which is one of the things I was asking questions about earlier about partnering with them. Recommendation to purchase active learning for middle level science product for JTL. And the purchase of Activate Learning for middle level for Lehman Intermediate School. For science, and then recommendation to purchase Magic School. For 117, which will be funded through the technology department budget. And then any questions in regard to properties and facilities or EPR's recommendations?
On the EPR one, you're on the committee.
Mhm.
You went through these with them.
Well, I was not at the meeting, but I did read the board agenda in advance and emailed my questions
Are
in.
you, so you're comfortable with it? Because I tried to read them, no, I didn't get them.
The EPR committee, they would only be here if the EPR committee agreed to move it forward.
Just the things.
Yep.
But I tried to figure out what they all meant.
Yeah, well, we're redoing.
So
this
which
on-
questions,
I
so,
just say,
so Writable is, an online platform that assists teachers in offering feedback for
Okay.
students writing. The pre-college, I honestly, I don't know why it's on here, because it's not a finance consideration, because it's actually a zero sum. It doesn't cost anything, so I'm not sure why that moved forward. Yep. Item C and D are the middle school new science program that addresses the STEEL standards.
oh.
So this is the new program. And then item E is Magic School AI, which is a platform that our teachers would be able to leverage artificial intelligence to help them with rubrics, designing of lesson plans, things that can
Okay.
make their life a little easier.
Thank you very much.
Yep, absolutely.
And
Glad
now
you said it.
participation. I know Keith had some questions.
Keith's question was, what is the money gained from the contract?
I'm here.
Keith, are you here?
I'm here. I'm actually waiting to talk.
Go for it.
First off, that I heard you say the zero, that if you said the zero cost is the track, we did have an $8,000 cost. Part of it wasn't, but part of it was. It was like $8,000. I
No,
couldn't hear.
About Lackawanna College.
We were talking about Lackawanna College, not the track. The track.
Okay,
is
I'm sorry. Okay,
$2,000.
so okay, forget about that one. But what I was trying to answer, I was trying to ask two questions about the soda. Why do we have to go with any soda exclusivity contract? I mean, what really do we have to do? Why can't we just, as a district, say we don't choose to go? I know we're getting money, and I think it was I don't remember the numbers. But my question is, do the numbers that we get from the scholarships and everything else they will give us, will that be more than what it's going to necessarily cost our teachers to pay more for their soda or drinks in the machines and the students, as well as the parents buying the essential products to raise funds for our schools? I heard $12 a case of water, if I'm not mistaken, $4 for a case of 16-ounce bottles at Sam's Club or BJ's. It's 10 cents a bottle. That's crazy. That is crazy. So just factor in how much water any of our events at our school, whether it be sporting events, whether it be concerts that they sell refreshments at, will we make more in our revenue from Coca-Cola to be an exclusive Coca-Cola school? I highly doubt it. It's just alarming, and I don't think the numbers got any better than when we tabled it from the last meeting. So that's very upsetting. I was unable to hear what we talked about the microphones, but I was going to bring up the microphones, but I'll just bring up at the board meeting because I didn't hear about. I was in a bad cell spot when you were talking about the microphones. But that was my question about the soda. Why are we jumping on a contract? Clearly, we were not following the Pepsi one because people didn't use Pepsi. But this Coke one is a little alarming. Because it was a little more, because I was on the board when we went with Pepsi, and it was not that strict, it seemed. But too many uncertainties with that contract, if you ask me.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank
Any
you.
other public? Thank you.
Let's do our recommendation. We have a recommendation to move forward. The max cases in the amount of $51,365.25.
So moved.
Second.
David,
Aye.
approve the purchase of wireless microphones for High School South at the cost of $27,770.69 from B&H, which is an Omnia contract.
So move.
Second.
Aye.
Okay. And accept the reimbursements, which I'm never
Please.
gonna disagree with getting money back. But do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Aye.
And do we want to move forward with Coca-Cola to discuss it further?
I'm still not comfortable with it. I don't know why. I'm sorry.
I think the prices for Coke are reasonable. It's just the water stuff that's really expensive to me. And they have, what are they, Dasani water or what are they?
Dasani.
And Dasani is typically more expensive than our Churchter waters that we currently have. You vote.
Mine was all, I just like Coke better than Pepsi, it doesn't make it, yeah.
I
And they
don't
both
drink
gave
soda,
us
I
a
don't
good
drink
deal.
Powerade drink, so I don't know. But as a committee, we need to decide what we want to do. Do we want more information? Like, if we want more information, what more information do we want Dr. Vitale to get for us? So we can be comfortable with the contract, because it's our
So-
job to do that.
So I think it's important to provide vending machines that teachers have access, staff have access to in the buildings. And that students don't have access to them during school hours, right? So if there's a way for a vending company to provide those machines and continue to stock them so that employees don't have to go in and do that, that's ideal. But in our concession stands at games and other activities, I think we should have the right to make that determination of what product we put in those areas and then buy them. But I'm gonna look, I think a recommendation from you would be helpful to say, you know what, it's so much easier if we just had an order form that all the places could go to, the deliveries are made, brought right to the site. We don't have to do a single thing. We don't have to send somebody to BJ's to buy
That would be
cases.
very convenient.
Right, and so I guess having that from you would be really useful as well.
So I would say having one company, one point of contact is helpful. Because when you say you want the opportunity to make decisions in your own concession stands. Well, what happens if football wants something different than soccer?
Right.
Then if booster clubs want something different, then who's ordering, who's responsible, then each booster club is responsible for that. Personally, we're talking about budget deficits and how do we increase revenue? And we're talking about walking away from a projected $129,000 over 5 years.
And it doesn't cost us anything to go into the contract, right? Because we're not, we just, whatever we buy, we use what we buy, what we use, and we
Correct.
budget for that anyways.
Correct.
So I guess for me, what I was trying to ask when I was driving, which I apologize, is, so for example, will there be like a central order form for any school sponsored type event? Like a play, it's like a deadline, you need to order your concession stands by this date. You need to
So
order by this date
we,
for you.
we will figure out what that looks like.
Okay. I just wanna make sure it's.
I don't
simple,
have the
easy.
nitty gritty of logistics, but I can certainly have the business office work up what that looks like.
Yeah, I just wanna make it as convenient as possible for our organizations that would be utilizing our, like, it's easy to fill a vending machine. What it's not easy to do is for the athletic department to work with food services to make sure we have our concession stands filled, or it's not. You know, the school play was last week at North or the week before at South. Are they able to then make it convenient for that organization there to make sure that they have what they need in a timely manner for what they need?
For
I don't wanna make it
beverages, so
yeah.
this isn't for
Yeah.
the treats. the
Yeah,
snacks.
beverages.
This would be beverages, yeah.
Right, well, I mean, it's convenient and easy for them.
Yeah, that would
has
always
not
be-
been in the past with Pepsi, that's.
We may
why.
wanna warehouse some stuff. So that the clubs get, if they need.
No, I would say that clubs would be expected to order in an appropriate timeline,
Yeah,
because where are we going to store it? Who's going to be responsible for that inventory and
why
watch
did you
it?
say a week before you need it, you have to order?
Right,
What do you
Yeah.
think you're gonna need?
correct.
Oh.
Okay.
Cause that's like my biggest thing is that I know just, it wasn't easy before Pepsi.
Right, and I can't speak on that, so we will do everything we can to make it as easy as possible.
So
So we'll move it forward.
Second.
So moved.
All right,
By fatigue.
sorry about that. Okay, so next we have on the agenda, moving forward, our budget presentation, which we don't need to do anything for, but it's moving forward for the presentation.
Mhm.
Okay, and then we have our A through, we're gonna pull out E for a moment. A, B, C, F, and G,
D,
from
A, B, C,
D, F, and G,
yes.
for properties and facilities, move those items forward.
So
Second.
Okay, now we're gonna move back to item E with the correction of up to 125,000
Mhm.
with the option that was so nicely explained of what we're doing inside the building
Mhm.
and not making structural changes, just adding a kitchen area, like a break area,
No, we're making
Okay.
structural
Yeah.
changes.
changes, but
Yeah.
We are adding a bathroom, a storage area,
Right.
and a lounge on the right-hand side.
okay,
Yes.
We are putting foundation in and making
Okay.
adjustments to the auxiliary building,
Yeah.
making,
not
okay.
shed.
Not to the, not to the
Accessories.
garage, to the.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as stated by Dr. Vitale,
Yes.
just so clearly for me, do I motion to move that forward?
So move.
Okay.
Second.
And then we have items A through E from recommendations from the Education Programs Committee, with item B not costing anything, it's just a contract.
So moved.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 12th. Both here and via Zoom at 5:30. And I believe I will be virtual for that one.
Okay.
If I attend, would be good.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna be here that week.
I will be in Boston that week.
Now, if we wanna. Yeah.
I can run it virtually if you guys don't mind. I will be virtual in my hotel room, so. I don't have meetings that day. That's just my travel day.
Okay.
Any questions before we motion to adjourn? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.